Thank our sponsor at Lair Architecture in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, designing for the future. Thank you so much for your support going into 2024. The Dirt Man Report. As always, we're not going to see a video tonight, but all the other videos that Andrew has created are on YouTube. You can look extremelycody.com. Feel free to watch them. They're always educational. They're always a little comical. So feel free to watch those. And I believe Andrew does have a few things to share with us this evening. So Andrew, if you would like to unmute yourself and share that information with us, that would be lovely.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. So yesterday, January 1st, I was out rock hounding at the Montour Fossil Pit up in Montour County, at the Montour Preserve. And basically, I was there because I needed to learn the site because I'm now partnered with the brand new Vernal Educational School, that is running out of Montour. It's gotten funding from various sources. One is the Middle Susquehanna Riverkeeper Association, which I did the podcast with, and I filmed with Zach Tansky with one of my Dirt Man reports. And I also taught some classes on a paddle boat up there for them. So continuing that, this is a brand new initiative called the Vernal School. Check them out on Facebook. I filmed up there yesterday. So check out Andrew Rockhound on Facebook. Brand new Dirt Man report only on Facebook. I think I might redo it and add some music and eventually put it on YouTube. But right now it was just it's gotten it was something like 350 views in 24 hours. So it's a pretty good one. So that was actually my first collecting with Dirtman trip. I'm going to be running trips throughout the year because basically I figured out I'm always rock hounding somewhere, so I might as well bring people with me. So I'm gonna start posting on Facebook, a couple days before. Hey, this is where I'm gonna be. Come on out. Here's directions. So along with that, through my not mine, but basically, I formed this Pennsylvania PA Geological President's Committee and roundtable, and so we've been having meetings, and through that we've jumped on Geology 365. It's a program that's really great, and what we're going to try to do is push this out across a lot of clubs. And EFMLS, we have the support with the EFMLS based on me and Bill. Basically, we want to get presenters, just like what we're doing here tonight on the Rock Room. People that have presentations that can give them over Zoom or in person. We'd like to get you to fill out your information on geology365.com, because that way clubs can contact you with a simple, they're not contacting you directly. They have to click a thing on the web page, and then that contacts you. If you want to do a presentation for them, you get their information, and then you start communicating. So it's a big push. We'd like to fill out this program because it helps everyone in Pennsylvania. Anyone who's a member of a rock club will benefit from this because all clubs will have better programs and meeting presentations. So I know, Mr. Johnson, you're on the room tonight. I know you got one. There are plenty of people. Jerry's got a million of them. So we'd love to have you all sign up. It's free. There's no membership or anything. It's just free. You go in there, you put in your info, you put in what your presentations are, and then if a club is interested, you'll get a message. So it's a great thing that we'd like to have everyone participate in. So I actually have to bounce from the Rock Room tonight so I can jump on the Friends of Mineralogy Pennsylvania meeting where Ryan Klockner is presenting that program right now to us as a club. So, and that can happen at any time. If you want Ryan Klockner's info, I can get it to you or just look it up. Last thing I want to say real quick is today, Diamond Dan, Daryl Powell, he does kids things, geology stuff across the spectrum for adults, kids, all that. He released today his book on Lee Levike's massive the Herkimer skeletals that Lee pulled out this year with me filming. Bill Stevens also co-wrote this book with him. I actually named the crystal that came out of the ground. Well, no, my wife did, Corey Rockhound, and then I presented that to Lee, and so I have a lot of participation in it as well. So I just want to put that out there. Look up Diamond Dan on Facebook. If you're in a rock club, you'll be soon getting his publications through your local club. Uh, but that's all I have to say. So that was a lot. So sorry and thank you.
No, thank you so much, Andrew. And if you, maybe the easiest thing, once you get a chance, obviously you said you had another program tonight, but if you get a chance to send Jerry some of that information, because that sounds terrific, and I love the idea of more educational programming, maybe Jerry can send it out with our Zoom Rock Room email.
Absolutely. It's not a problem at all. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful for people who are interested or maybe forgot something but was still interested and thought what you said was very beneficial to them. That would be quite amazing.
Not a problem.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. Like I said, I love having the idea of trying to have more programs, more educational programs on geology. That's exciting. Alrighty. So, like I said, with everyone that just heard me, hopefully we can send out an email sometime soon with all that information that Andrew just gave us in further detail. But for the rest of the evening, we have another message from the Institute: Educate, Inspire, and Unite, Ensuring the Future, a capital campaign. So I know they are currently in the process of getting this nature center really up and running, and scheduling their own programs and really building the Institute. So if you're interested or about any of their programs, or you live nearby, or you think what they're doing is fabulous, because it is, check out that link on the bottom of the screen, that natureandcultureinstitute.org. Alrighty, and mark your calendars if you haven't already. The geology bus trip with the Institute, as well as Jerry and Steve Lindbergh, that we all know so well from this program. It is Saturday on May 11th, and it is an all-day trip. It starts in the morning at around 8:30, and it goes to 4:30 in the afternoon. There's a couple different locations that you're going to stop, and you're going to talk and be really educated on some of these locations, geological locations that they're going to stop at. It sounds like a really good time, but I believe that seats are limited. So if you were interested in this come May, I know, how could we be talking about May already? We're talking about Christmas, but we got to look ahead on the calendar a little bit into 2024. And if you are interested in this trip, feel free to reach out to Jerry or Steve, whatever's easiest for you. Crystal Cove Collective, we thank them again for being a sponsor here. If you haven't already, reach out to them, look them up online, pay them a visit there in Camp Hill and or in Thomasville. Alrighty, and then we have a couple dates coming up that are the next few programs in the beginning of 2024. So obviously we have our program tonight. Later in January 16th, we will have a program with Shane Byrne. And then we're into February already. So February 6th and February 20th, we have two scheduled Zoom rock rooms, one with Ken Frazier and Greg Herman, talking about some very specific yet very fascinating topics. And then we are already into March. We're getting approaching spring, if you can believe it or not, with those couple Zoom rock rooms here on March 5th and March 19th. Dean has been on the Zoom rock room before, a young professional who does a fantastic job. And then we have a professor from Cookstown University that is going to be giving us a program. So we have a lot of good speakers, a lot of specific and fascinating topics there. So as always, take a piece of paper out, pull out your phone, mark your calendars for those couple dates as we begin the 2024 year. Alrighty, this is our last slide for tonight in the intro. Um, After speaking with Jerry, it sounds like some of these details might be adjusted just a little bit. So if Jerry, if you want to chime in on this slide at all, you're more than welcome to. But the world is going to be having a solar eclipse path there. April 8th of 2024. So coming up again this spring, we are going to have a solar eclipse. So it looks like if you are located in South Central Pennsylvania, near Cadorus State Park in Hanover, Pennsylvania, around 1:30 to 4 p.m., the sun will be covered 91%. Again, some of that might fluctuate just a little bit. As we get closer to that date. And like I said, this slide might need to be updated a bit, but it is still very cool to know that this is coming in the near future. In just a couple months, couple weeks, it'll be here before you know it.
Yep, about 1 million people are projected to be heading to the Midwest and to down into Texas to be on that center line where the blue line is there, where you see the totality going on. And I know in the state park, Pennsylvania state parks, all the parks have been told that their staff is not doing a program at their park because we expect all of you to be at Prescott Isle up in outside of Erie for crowd control, because they're expecting a huge crowd to be on that line right there at Erie. So that's why I'm doing a program for Cadorus Park that day, because their staff will be elsewhere. But put it on your calendar. I think this is the last one for a number of years that's going to be visible in North America. So more about that coming up, but put it on your calendar, or you want to make arrangements to head to the blue line totality. I know we have one person here I know for sure that is planning on being I believe they're talking about going to Texas. So anyway, April the 8th, you can't miss it. All right, Mel.
Alrighty. Well, thank you very much, Jerry. I am going to stop sharing my screen, and then we can move on with our program from our speaker, Jerry Jones, that everyone should be familiar with by now. Take it away, Jerry.
All right, and just give you an update. We've been advertising Christmas Magic throughout the November and December, and I got the official numbers today from the parks director that the program ended Saturday night, and the total attendance was 46,647 people, and that's second best ever. I believe the all-time record is about 49 something. So they were very happy with the 46,600 people that went through Christmas Magic after having 7 days closed because of the bad weather. And of course, our great friend Mel here, she was a part of the program this year with the setup. So she should be happy to know that those 46,000 enjoyed the show. So thanks for all that. All right, I gotta do back here. All right, so we're going to move on to our program tonight. And before we really get started, everybody has heard of the Japan earthquake that happened New Year's Day over there. 7.5 or 7.6 on the Richter scale, and a number of deaths. A lot of destruction took place, but maybe some of you did not hear about what happened early this morning. Yeah, Rockville, Maryland, it did have an earthquake just before 1 a.m. And that's the marking that I'm showing you there between the 000 and the 01. Trying to get to my pointer here. Oh. Zoom has changed things around again. uh, okay. So anyway, Rockville did have a 2.3 magnitude earthquake this morning. Didn't cause any damage that I did hear about, but it's not unusual for Maryland to have small earthquakes such as this. So it's not really unusual. So anyway, just wanted to make you aware of that if you did not hear that before. All right, so our program tonight is one I was going to do. I was going to do earlier, actually, a couple months ago, but we postponed it because we had to be off at night. So geology along the York County Heritage Rail Trail, and I'm going to show you where the trail is. Obviously, if you've not been on the York County Heritage Rail Trail, it is a splendid trail. Actually, it has been recognized several times as being one of the best rail trails in all of Pennsylvania. So it actually starts now at John Rudy County Park. If you can see my pointer, my cursor, it's up here north of York, which is right here. And it had been until last year known as the purple part was known as the Northern Extension, and the red was the major York County Heritage Rail Trail County Park, which went totally now. It goes 26 miles to the Mason-Dixon line and ties in with the rail trail in Maryland and goes another 23 miles into Maryland down close to Cockeysville. So if you see how the rail trail runs, generally speaking, in a north-south direction, our rock strata is passing through the area in a southwest to northeast direction. So the rail trail actually does go through a number of geologic formations, which makes it a splendid tour. And there actually are two online publications at this point on the geology of the Northern Extension and the geology of the Heritage Rail Trail. They will be combined into one publication by the Pennsylvania Geologic Survey here in 2024, since the whole trail is now locked together. So the trail does go through physiographically. It kind of starts in the Piedmont lowlands section, which is a limestone valley. And once you get south of York, it goes into the Piedmont uplands. So the lowland section is sedimentary rocks. Upland section is primarily metamorphic rocks of different ages. So here's a little bit maybe better around the York area. Again, we have the lowland section where Route 30 is running, and actually where John Rudy Park is up here. It is it's also in an extension of the York Valley. And south of York, as I said, we turn into the upland section. So most of the trail, much of the trail, I should say, is crushed stone. The northern extension part, for the most part, from Rudy Park down to Route 30, distance of about 4 miles, is much of that is paved because it's on a floodplain. Plus, it's a newer segment, so they had to abide to the floodplain regulation. So easy access. There's railroad track that follows much of it. That's still active for an excursion train. Unfortunately, these are not pictures from the York County Heritage Rail Trail. I just had to throw them in for a little bit of humor. And when I say a little bit, I'm talking a little bit of humor here. So the rocks found along the rail trail are ranged from Jurassic in age, which are roughly about 150 million years old, in the form of a rock called diabase that we talked about before, primarily with Gettysburg. And then we get into the limestones like the Conestoga Formation, the Vintage, the Kinzers. And then down in the upland section, we get into formations that are called the Antietam, Harpers, the Chickies, Sam's Creek Metabasalt, the Marburg Schist, and the Octoroa. And these are older. Lower Cambrian, and we're talking about around 510 million years old to 500 million. And there's those last three that are still questionable exactly how old they really are, because they've been through metamorphism several times. Putting their actual date on those are still questionable, actually. So the picture I want you to keep, I'm not going to talk about geologic history too much tonight, but the picture I want you to keep is starting here on the left. You see the word Laurentia. That's the ancient North America before Pangea. And if you would put yourself at John Rudy Park at the northern edge of the rail trail, you're on the slopes, the Connell slope of Laurentia. And the rest of the trip down the rail trail, you actually have fallen into the Octoroa Sea. And when you get down around Moncton, Maryland, to the end of Cockeysville, you're actually climbing back up onto an ancient piece of continent. These rocks down around Cockeysville, some of those are 1 billion with a B, 1 billion years old. So the rail trail actually starts on the slopes of Laurentia, goes into the shallow sea of the Octoroa, and ends at Cockeysville by climbing up into a billion-year-old continental mass. Okay, so little geological map here. Rudy Park is right up here where I'm at the top of the slide. And these numbers on here are stop numbers that we have for our guide that we did put together in 2017. Passing through some limestone and the dolomite, the vintage. We get down closer to Route 30. You see the word Chickies Formation. This is what we call the western end of a local uplands. We know it as the Helom Hills that run from here eastward to the Susquehanna River. And actually across the river, it picks up again at Chickies Rock. You may have heard of Chickies Rock. And of course, then Route 30 is right here at the bottom of the slide. Okay, so we're going to take that little section and look at, first of all, this is the York County Parks Administrative Headquarters at John Rudy Park. Little history, 1798, the house was built. And it actually was owned by John Rudy, who was the founder of the York Telegraph Company way back when. Yeah, this is where the administrative offices are still today. And if you look at some of the rock within the house, all the rock was taken out locally. Here's some Triassic sandstone that's not too far away from Rudy Park. And then the quartzite off the hill from behind the park office. And the limestone and dolomite that underlies the Rudy Park is called the Vintage Formation. And you'll find vintage limestone and dolomite in the house, exterior walls. So here's the newer part of the trail coming out of Rudy Park. And this is paved because we're on the floodplain of the Cador's Creek, which is off to your right. You cannot see it on this slide. And there's the Cador's Creek kind of parallels the entire rail trail along all 26 miles. Maybe this is the main branch of the Cador's. When we get further south, we'll be talking about a certain branch of the Cador's Creek. So here's the vintage formation along the Cador's Creek along the rail trail. And this is at the bottom, what we call a syncline. Syncline is a U-shaped fold in the rock. And on the bottom of the U, the rock will be horizontal, as you're seeing it here. The layers here are horizontal. So we are right in the axis or the middle of this particular syncline, which is, kind of neat to a geologist. The Cador Stone Quarry is a neighbor to Rudy Park. The quarry has now been reclaimed, and actually all these dump piles have been are gone, and big warehouses have been and are being built on the property. So I need to update this a little bit. But the quarry is no longer there as far as operational. A big lake now. It's totally water filled. Close by the trail in Amicsville, there's a place that I have talked about before called the Bootlegger Sinkhole. It was an active sinkhole 12,000 to 6,000 years ago. And some Ice Age mammals and Ice Age animals did fall into the sinkhole and become calcified, fossilized. And their bones were excavated by the local Cavers Club in the 60s and early 70s. And this became actually one of only 4 Pleistocene Ice Age mammal fossilized sites in the world. Now on the property of the York County Firemen's Training Center. It's under lock and key. There's still a door there with a padlock on. 40-foot drop to the very bottom. Here's some of the animals that they have identified. All this material has been sent to Carnegie Institute in Pittsburgh.
Northern bog lemming.
And it was an article written back in the 60s about it. So they were finding some shrew, caribou, things that live today in the Hudson Bay area that aren't found around here today. So here's the Kinzers Formation, another limestone unit that's found along the creek, right along the trail in the northern part. And here's the vintage limestone. These were pebbles that were in the rock that have weathered out. This was, we think, a submarine landslide on the Connell Slope. So these chunks got picked up and they slid downhill, as in a landslide, but under the ocean, preserved within the vintage. As we ride the rail trail closer to Route 30, as I mentioned, we have the Hellam Hills. This is an upland section that the trail is going to go up and over. The hills are made up of quartzite, which is a harder rock than the limestone that we're on right now. So the more stubborn rock, the quartzite, supports the Hellam Hills. So if you're going to ride the northern part of the rail trail, expect to have one hill going up and a hill going down. It's not all totally flat. Another geological map. Again, here's the Hellam Hills area with what we call the Chickies quartzite, which was a beach deposit. And we have limestone around that again. And there is a fault that is passing through the area right in here that has brought the limestone up and over the quartzite, called the Glades Overthrust. Unfortunately, there's not really any outcrops of it, but if you're on a geological tour with me on the rail trail, I'll come to this spot and I'll stop and I will tell you that the limestone valley that we're standing on now is thrusted up and over the quartzite as we head up the ridge. So it's called the Glades Overthrust. Here's the Chickies quartzite making up the Hellam Hills that's exposed along the the rail trail in this section. If you're lucky within the quartzite, you're able to find an animal called Scolithus. These are worm tubes. We've talked about these before also. That are dating tools. They're about 540 million years old. These are the burrows of the worm. We have never seen the actual worm organism that made these. So we're 98% sure that's what they were. Named from Chickies Rock, by the way, across the river into Lancaster County. Another fossil that was found at a now reclaimed sand quarry next to the rail trail. These are called monocriterion. These are like a coral fossil that had been found there. And a few years ago, I think it was in 2015, I found this shell
Mickwitz.
called Mickwitchiid. And I actually did send this over to a professor in Europe who's a authority on Mickwitchiids to verify that's what it was. There's only been one specimen ever found within the Chickies Formation, and I have it. And I have gone back to the sand quarry a number of times looking for another one and never did find another one. So kind of a famous little find right there. This happened down in Maryland at a sand quarry, but I had to be funny. That quartzite does turn back to sand as it weathers and all that. So when we're in the field, we have a little bit of fun. Okay. Here's Route 30 Bridge over the Cadorus Creek. And that's York in the background, and Reservoir Hill is behind there. That's where we transition from the Piedmont Lowlands section into the Piedmont Uplands section back there at Reservoir Hill. But as we are approaching Route 30, you'll see the riprap on the banks. This is part of the Corps of Engineers flood program that was done, I think, in 1934, following the Great Flood of 1932 in York. Corps of Engineers came in and developed that the Cadorus would not flood as bad. They rip-wrapped a lot of the banking using what's called the Harper's Philite, which is the local rock in this area. And it's also right here, if you're a bird watcher, this is a good place to come see family of eagles. That will be starting. In fact, I guess it has started. There is a nest right off the trail, between the trail and the Harley Davidson motorcycle plant. And if you're lucky, you'll be able to see one or two eagles. Unfortunately, the tower that this eagle's sitting on, which is at the York City sewer facility, have been torn down. So you won't find the birds resting on these ladders anymore. But they're very common, and bird watchers are out there coming in another couple months when the eggs start to hatch. How many eggs do they have? And watch the kids grow up. All right, so sometimes you just gotta get my attention. Just give me a wallop with a rod, right? And we're going to come down into the main section of the Heritage Rail Trail. We're going to bypass York because there's not really much in York to see. So once we get to Route 30, although the trail has now just been connected to the main trail, geologically, there's not much to talk about in there other than flood control and maybe a little bit of erosion. So we go south of York, okay, into the uplands section. And this is where we get into the metamorphic rocks. And the Reservoir Hill Ridge is made up of the Chickies, mostly phyllite. There is a little bit of Chickee's quartzite in here, but the reason I put this slide in, you can see how much the rock has been folded. It's not straight. It's really bent, contorted. This particular rock outcrop, which is about 1,000 feet long, actually is right along two faults that join each other at that point. One's running in an east-west direction, and the other one's in a north-south direction. And so there's been a lot of distortion and faulting going on in that railroad cut there. Very close to the rail trail. We don't like to advertise it because we don't want people to be trespassing. But the place called Indian Rock. If you know York area, particularly just south of York, there's an Indian Rock Dam, Indian Rock Campground, Indian Rock Elementary School, Indian Rock Dam Road. And people were asking, where's Indian Rock? And we found it. Okay, so this is actually Indian Rock at the base of Indian Rock Dam. And it's a quartzite that has withstood the weathering and erosion. The rest of the rock that was around it was a phyllite, much softer rock, weathered and eroded away quicker, and left this anticline of Chickee's quartzite. You really can't see the arch shape here on this side, but if I was at the right end up here, you'd be able to see the arch shape. Our buddy Ken Fraser that's in the room, he and I and two others went out there 2 years ago, I guess now it was, and did some survey work to see how much the rock has changed with ground level since the more famous pictures were taken in 1920s and 30s. All right, so we moved down into this upland section, and you can see from the slide, here's the Chickee's Formation, and most of the rest of this is the Antietam and Harper's, which is sandstone, quartzite, and the phyllite I just showed you. If you know the York area again, here's Lake Williams right here, and the town of Jacobus is over here. And again, there's a guide online. If you do a search for the Geological Guide to the York County Heritage Rail Trail, you'll find a online actually book that is free, and it does have these stops in that we discuss various things. Probably one of the biggest historical spots on the whole rail trail everybody wants to see is Howard Tunnel. Okay, this is still proclaimed as one of the oldest active railroad tunnels in the country. Opened up in 1840, and it was actually enlarged in 1866 after the Civil War to allow 2 trains to go through it, although there's only 1 track going through it now. There were room for 2 trains to go through at one time. But this is all the Harper's Formation, and also the Chickee's Formation is sitting right over here. This is Chickee's, this is the Harper's, and right on this contact right there, there's a fault. And if you have real good eyes, let me get back to that. So here's the one date stone, 1866, when the tunnel was rebuilt. That's the date stone on the north portal. The south portal says 1840, opened. So go back to this slide here. There's a fault right here. If you're really good eyes and look at the rock, you will see that there are lines going up and down this rock called slicken sides, where 2 rocks rub together to produce lines. I'm trying to point some out too here that indicate that there was faulting taking place. Over the course of working with York County Parks, many people have asked me, well, did they build the tunnel purposely on that fault because of easy digging? And my belief in 1838, 1840, when they built the tunnel, my answer is no. They had no idea there was a fault there. back in those days. There are a number of drill um, markings. These are where the railroad people actually had a chisel, star bit chisel, and one person would hold the chisel. His friend would take a 10-pound sledgehammer and hit it, rotate the chisel a quarter of a turn, hit, rotate, hit, rotate, hit, and after probably this one took about an hour to make. That's a 6-inch card sitting there. You have a hole to put your black powder in to blast the rock away. Inside the tunnel, by the way, is composed of diabase, probably quarried out of northern York County, up around York Haven. So you can see chisel marks in the diabase called feathering, where they shape the diabase. Here are some drill holes where they drilled to remove this block out of a quarry and transported it to Howard Tunnel. As I mentioned earlier, much of the rock is heavily folded. Here's a great sample we found along the rail trail south of Howard Tunnel, showing the Harper's Formation rock phyllite being folded. So it's all very tightly folded like that. Again, the Cador's Creek still following the rail trail. The high point is actually down at the southern end of the Mason-Dixon line near New Freedom, close to New Freedom. And so the Cador's Creek does flow north toward York. Indian Rock Dam is where the several branches of the Cador's Creek come together and form what we call the main branch from the Indian Rock Dam through York and then out to the Susquehanna River. And that's where it does, it flows past John Rudy Park as it heads toward the Susquehanna River. Another historical homestead was the Caspar Gladfelder homestead. Caspar Gladfelder was the one that came from Switzerland in the 1840s. And Gladfelder, if you're a York Countian, you've heard of Gladfelder paper. It used to be Gladfelder paper. It's now called Pixel. But the P.H. Gladfelder Company was big in York County for paper making. And this is where Caspar, the original Gladfelder, lived right along the rail trail. This is the Antietam sandstone taken right out of the hillside, right behind the house. I always testify, if you find a stone house, that stone in that house probably did not come very far away. Unless it's a real famous house like the Biltmore Mansion down in Asheville, North Carolina. That's different. So we go further south, now through a town called Seven Valleys. And south of Seven Valleys, we cross over another major fault. Again, there's no good exposure there to show this to people. You have to take my word for it that when you get to that white barn, you are crossing the Martic line. That is now a major fault line that crosses, actually, it starts in Maryland and then goes the whole way across southeastern Pennsylvania, almost to Philadelphia, where it intersects with another fault system over there. It does kind of divide the metamorphic rocks to the south with sedimentary rocks to the north. It could be a plate boundary. That's still being debated. And if you look in the rock real carefully, you'll be able to find quartz veins kind of suggesting this is where the fault might be. Just south of the Martic line, there's another one of our historical structures called Hanover Junction Train Station. The rail on the right was the Northern Central Railroad. The trail coming here was the Hanover Branch Railroad that came off the Northern Central at this point. And the Hanover Branch actually ran through Hanover, Pennsylvania, out to Gettysburg. And historically, this is where the Abraham Lincoln train, when he went to give his Gettysburg address, this is the route that he took. And there's still a lot of debate going on amongst the historians if Abraham Lincoln got off the train at Hanover Junction. Here is one of the historical pictures, 1863, of obviously the train is pointing south. So this may be on his return from Gettysburg. That's still being debated too. And supposedly that right there is Abraham Lincoln. Again, there's debate about that amongst several top historians, if that's really Abraham Lincoln, or was this picture taken later and a reenactment? It's a good program that we need to, if you ever need to veer off of geology one week, we need to get Scott Mingus in here to do his program about is that Lincoln. All right, well, near Hanover Junction train station is our another county park called P. Joseph Robb County Park. It's the property of it was the property of the York Iron Company mine that took iron out of the ground 1854 until sometime around 1880. And they do have adits, mine shafts into the hillside. This is the biggest one that we got a state grant to put a bat door over it. If you ever see the Conservation Fund license plates, we thank you for buying those license plates that enabled us to get a grant to have the Game Commission build this bat door for us, because we have proven that there are bats inside of our mine shafts right now hibernating. Here's some proof of them. Here's a tricolored bat and a little brown bat hiding up here. And people really know why bats hang upside down, right? Seriously. They are mammals. They are not birds. So they need to be hanging upside down. So when they want to fly, they let go, and the speed that they get as they go down is how they get in the air. Bats cannot stand on the ground and take off like a bird. Although my joke I give with that is that one time I did see a bat on the floor of the mine shaft at Rob, and I asked him, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Yoga." So late February, we're going to be actually doing our annual bat count into these mine shafts again, as we've been monitoring the numbers for a good many years. We were hit by the white nose syndrome. I think in 2014 or 13 or 14, we were hit with the white nose syndrome, which knocked out a huge number of little brown bats, particularly. We were hit by it. Our numbers went down drastically, and we're still recovering slowly. All right, the southern portion of the rail trail. If you know the area at all, we're going to get into the Glen Rock area, southern York County. Here's the Martic line that we just showed you, and you see all this stuff down here. This is all metamorphic rocks. Schist. The green is what we call the Sam's Creek Formation, which is a volcanic rock. It's a basalt. Mixed all in here. So here is Glen Rock. Never been to Glen Rock. It's a fascinating town. They just got done their 174th year, the Glen Rock Carolers. Now, if you want something to do unique Christmas Eve, come to Glen Rock Christmas Eve and enjoy at 11 o'clock. The Glen Rock Carolers do a concert in the Lutheran church at the 11 o'clock. But at midnight, they start at the square in Glen Rock, which is right around the corner from this picture. And they walk the streets of Glen Rock all night. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, they get back to now there's a Glen Rock Caroler statue. kind of behind where this picture was taken, and they sing the doxology there and go home. They've been doing it for 174 years, 50 men. It's limited to only 50 members. So you're a member until you either withdraw because you just can't do it anymore, or if you passed away, you're a lifetime member until you actually resign or pass on. But there's a long waiting list. But anyway, in Glen Rock, this is where we start to see the metabasalts. But first of all, we have the Octorara Formation. This is a quartzite. You can see how the quartzite holding up this hill, harder than the surrounding rock. And the quartzite is a very durable rock. It's a very thin rock unit within what we call the Octorara Formation. This formation is only about 100 feet thick, so it barely shows up on a geological map. This is what the quartzite kind of looks like. Has a little bit of iron in it, but it breaks in this parallelogram shape based on the what we call the jointing of the rock. That's the natural breakage of the rock. Be a good building stone if they wanted to actually quarry it. So here's the schist. Schist is a metamorphic rock. It used to be shale, and then the clay turned into mica through metamorphism. As I said, this rock's been through at least 2 stages of metamorphism with heat and pressure with continental collisions. And here's the Sam's Creek metabasalt. This was formed in a mid-oceanic ridge environment, just like we have the mid-Atlantic ridge today. This was a mid-oceanic ridge at one time that we were looking at along the rail trail. It's much more massive than the schist. That's how you can tell. One way you can tell it apart. It's also more green in color than the schist. And there's also cavities in the rock that were gas bubbles that broke. That's present in some of the basalt. It's not present in all the basalt. And the rock again has been intensely folded. This is a great exposure down south of Glen Rock, showing the schist has been really folded. This happened during a period of metamorphism, a period when there was a continental collision. The rock was probably buried 4 to 5 miles deep below the surface, melted back into a semi-done jello state, folded, frozen, and became the second generation rock. Close by, not along the trail, but close by, there's an old mine shaft called the Help Mine. It only worked about 2 years. It was a very low productive iron mine. The cave, if you want to call it a cave, only goes back in there about 20 feet and stops. But that's the presence of some of the iron mining that was being done in southern York County. We get to the highest point on the rail trail of all of our movement of this 26 miles, Summit Grove, just south of New Freedom, elevation of 860 feet above sea level. Downtown York, which is the lowest level along the main part of the rail trail, is at 420 feet. So it's a big drop. So I always encourage people, if you're going to ride your bike on the rail trail, if you ride from south to north, you're going downhill. It's when you turn around to go back to your parking lot where you have to be climbing the hill. So keep that in mind. I threw this in because it's kind of neat. This is the New Freedom area. The rail trail's coming down right here. But look at the Mason-Dixon line shooting right across here from this aerial photography. You can see how the farm fields don't line up on either side of the state line. It makes that nice line across the map. The aerial photo right there. I had to take a picture of that. So, okay. Now here's a problem. I'm going to play politics for a moment. Here's a problem between Maryland and Pennsylvania. Geology. If you use that app, Rock D, and Diana has been in here several times with programming Rock D. If you use Rock D on the rail trail, when you're in Pennsylvania, it's going to tell you you're in the Octorara Formation. When you cross the Mason-Dixon line into Maryland, you check Rock D, guess what? It's going to tell you you're in the Wissahickon Formation. How can things change in 100 feet of me walking? Well, it's because Maryland has done some more recent mapping in northern Maryland compared to what Pennsylvania has done in southern Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania changed our Wissahickon to the Octorara a number of years ago based on geology and the fabric of the rock and all these other attributes. But Maryland has kept the Wissahickon in their nomenclature, and they actually have now the Wissahickon broken into members. Okay, a little bit further west, we did a project a couple weeks ago below Hanover, where I was in the Marburg Formation in Pennsylvania. But once I crossed the Maryland line, I'm suddenly in the Urbana Formation. Because again, Maryland updated, did some mapping, and they found out that they have different geology. And they recognized it, and they've reclassified a lot of things that Pennsylvania hasn't done yet. So just keep that in mind. As you go from one state to another, you may have a little problem. So here's the Baltimore Gneiss. This is down in Maryland, heading toward actually in Moncton. This is the rock that's 1 billion years old. This was part of the continental mass that was called Rodinia 1 billion years ago, down around the South Pole, I should say. And it's a gneiss, in other words, a metamorphic rock where the light-colored and dark-colored minerals lined into their own zones give you that banding effect. Beautiful rock. But that is 1 billion years old. Not found in Pennsylvania. It is in Maryland. And you get to the end of the rail trail, you can go see the Ashland Furnace Complex. Again, not directly on the rail trail in Maryland. It's over the hill from the rail trail, but it was a huge furnace complex, 1844 to 1887. Much of our iron ore that we took out of the ground in southern York County actually went to Ashland Furnace by the Northern Central Railroad that we've been walking on or following as we were going. So there is a excursion train. Used to be called Steam in the History. It's now called the Northern Central Railroad. I need to change this. And you can actually take a train excursion ride, either a long ride or a short ride. They don't go into York yet. They do go up to Howard Tunnel on some rides and come back down. The field conference for Pennsylvania geologists that will be held the first weekend of October of this year. Our Friday morning is going to be spent on the train, and we're going to be stopping at several of the cuts that I deemed that are significant to look at. So anyway, that brings my program to an end on the geology of the York County Heritage Rail Trail. I hope you enjoyed that. So if you have any questions, don't be afraid to put them in the chat or just verbally tell us that.
growing up in the Philadelphia area, we were in an area with a lot of schist and kyanite and garnet. But I remember, at least in my younger years, we always called that the Wissahickon schist.
Yep.
Has that been changed in Pennsylvania now?
Wissahickon is still applied only within Philadelphia area. Okay, is it Fairmont Park? I'm thinking. Everything else, like in Delaware County, I'm not sure where the line stops, but someplace in Delaware County and then coming through Chester, York, Lancaster, it's called the Octorara. There's a
Grew up in Delaware County, and so that's what, I don't know, somewhere I just learned that's what it was called. And
yep, nope. Say it took a long time for me to get Wissahickon out of my mind and use Octorara. But some people at Westchester did research in Delaware County, saw that there was a geochemical difference between the Wissahickon and the Octorara, and then it needed to be split. Is the Ashland furnace seen by the New Freedom stop? No. Ashland is another 23 miles south of New Freedom.
Yeah, I've biked the whole thing. Well, I've done the extension separately, but not the new part they connected between downtown York.
Right.
But years ago, our boys group from church stayed at the Seven Valleys Farms, and we rode all the way down to Cockeysville and back, and up to York and back, and did the whole thing.
That's
so
right.
It's nice to see the geology now that I've biked it.
Right.
And Ashland Furnace is a cool place to look around. It has a great history. It was owned by the Maryland Steel Company, then Pennsylvania, Maryland. Then they when they opened Sparrows Point, they moved some of the equipment there, and then Bethlehem Steel. So it's a very famous, probably the largest iron furnaces in Maryland until Sparrows Point.
Yeah. The store is still there, and there's something
Yeah,
else.
the little stone houses of the workers and all. It's a nice little village there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot you did the camping at the Kinsley farm.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
Yes, I'm curious. In that you said there was Jurassic period sandstone at one point in the trail. Would there be any marine life fossils dating from the Jurassic period in that sandstone? Have there ever been any found or?
The only fossils that have been found along the rail trail are those worm tubes, Scolithus.
All right,
that I talked
cool,
about.
thanks. Yeah.
No other fossils have been found. Of course, you don't find many fossils associated with metamorphic rocks either. So once you get to this southern 2/3 of the rail trail with metamorphic rocks, chance of finding any fossils is very, very slim.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Jerry, I'm going to jump in here on this. The question I want to ask you, since you brought it up, this concerns the Japanese earthquake.
Okay.
Sunday night, shortly after 9 o'clock here where I live in Mifflin County, we had a very loud boom and the house shook. About half an hour later, we had another one. And we have a local Facebook thing called Mifflin County Alerts, and I kind of looked on there, and I saw a lot of people posting this over quite a area, even going down into Juniata County. And I did try to look it up at the time to see if there was anything online, but I don't remember the site you talked about, but I couldn't find anything. And then when I saw about the Japanese earthquake, could they have been like reflective shocks that came back through the earth and happened to hit this area?
Oh.
Because these booms were heard over too large an area to be like a fireworks or something like that. And I just was curious on that.
I would say probably not.
Because the house shook both times. If they were not that, then they might have been like sonic booms or something like that. I just was wondering if there was any like unusual seismic activity in the Mifflin Juniata County area, like between 9 and 10 o'clock on Sunday evening. Because they said the house shook like it was hit by a percussion wave
Right.
both times.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website now for earthquakes, and there's nothing in your area.
Okay, I just was curious because that's what I thought about. Then when I saw the Japanese earthquake, I just wondered might have been because I've seen diagrams where when it hits, like sometimes the waves will pass through the earth and come out on the opposite side, like a reflected wave.
Yeah, that's happened before down in Indonesia. I know
Yeah.
when they had the big one down there. I'm not sure 7.5 would actually produce that type of thing. But yeah, there's nothing.
Okay, I just was curious because it just seemed to be wider than something just happened like near the house. There was too many people scattered over a wide area here in central Pennsylvania that reported it at about the same time.
Okay, I'll look into that though.
Okay. I think the one was around 9 o'clock, the other was around 9:30. Give or take a few minutes.
Right. Website's the Pennsylvania State Seismic Network. Hey,
Yeah, I thought I went on the one, but I was going on right away, and I didn't know maybe it wasn't posted yet. I don't know how quick they update that thing. I only looked Sunday night.
If it happens within Pennsylvania, it's on there within 5 minutes.
Okay.
So it's a PASEIS, PA size, which stands for the Pennsylvania State Seismic Network.
Okay.
But yeah, that's an interesting question.
Because it almost felt that way because I was sitting in my chair and it felt like my chair dropped out from under me, like not a lot, but like maybe just a little bit, like there was a little bit of vertical movement that just enough to jolt the chair.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. I'll have to do some digging. I haven't seen anything.
Okay, but I just thought I'd ask, because
Nope, that's no problem.
having a little bit more, with the room and stuff like that, thinking along those lines, well, what caused this? And when I saw people reporting like 20, 25 miles away, it had to be something more than just simply somebody setting off a firework nearby.
Right. Or I always blame it on the tannerite targets.
Hmm.
Tannerites are very, very loud when you stack them together and you shoot them.
Yeah.
It's actually louder than dynamite.
Hmm.
All right. Any other questions? Getting a little cold to go out and ride the trail now, but at least it's not too muddy now. Of course, ride it before Saturday when we get maybe a couple of inches of snow on it. All right. Saying nothing else there.
Where were those loud booms heard? I missed that part. What county?
Oh, you're muted there, Paul.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I live in Mifflin County, just north of Lewistown.
Oh, all right.
And also, I saw on the Facebook page people down in Juniata County reporting it as well. And I do know a couple of years ago there was an earthquake centered down in Juniata County. Actually, I think there was two of them.
Huh.
They're listed in the database, like 2019, something like that. There were two earthquakes down with the epicenters were in Juniata County.
Yeah, I was just over on, while you were explaining that, I was just over on Google trying to do a search for that. And I came back here. I couldn't find anything recent. But there were a lot of other reports of loud booms. I'll have to keep looking. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of tend to agree with Jerry. I've heard those go off in our area, those tannerite canisters that people shoot at.
Yeah.
Some of them are quite large and quite loud when they combine them together. They're kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
Amount of explosive power they have.
But I don't, from what I
Yeah.
can determine, there was nothing like that being set off in this
Yeah.
area of Pennsylvania.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Melanie, you got something else you want to say or not?
Just to thank you for everyone showing up again this evening for our first episode in 2024. And I hope everyone stays warm and safe and hopefully lives out there any New Year's resolutions they may have. So other than that, I think I'm good, Jerry.
Okay, well, remind you that this program, as all the programs, are they're being recorded and they will be on jonesgeo.com in a matter of an hour or two. And go back and watch it. I am going to send a new email out to you. Somebody sent me a link of the Mars rover video just made New Year's Day. Pretty neat. And if you haven't looked at the NR1 video that I posted on Jones Geo a couple weeks ago, the NR1 is the submarine sinkhole off the Keys south of Miami. That's a pretty neat video that John sent me, who's a big NR1 person. So it's kind of neat how they were diving into NR1 sinkhole. So anyway, we're gonna see everybody back here in 2 weeks from tonight, and then we have I think we have 5 Tuesdays in January. So anyway, we'll see you in 2 weeks from tonight. And as Mel said, please be safe out there. And we know that COVID is picking back up a little bit more, so be cautious in that manner too. So we'll see ya. Paul left, right?